Now, despite growing strain on the NHS, the Prime Minister has once again insisted there is no need at this stage to bring in further COVID restrictions in England.
Well, Boris Johnson admitted hospitals would face considerable pressure over the coming weeks, but said the country was in a much better position than this time last year. That's thanks to vaccinations. Well, we can speak now to the Vaccines Minister, Maggie Throup. Maggie Throup, good morning to you. I want to start with schools because it is a big day for secondary school pupils returning to school after the Christmas break, finding that they will need to test when they get there. Are you confident that there are enough teachers and enough tests to make that happen?
Yes, I am confident, and this has been worked on before Christmas to make sure that the testing availability was there for schools and for the pupils and for teachers. And I'm sure that both the teachers and the students will be quite confident to be able to go into the classrooms knowing that they've tested negative for coronavirus.
And mask wearing now for pupils in England all throughout the day, not just perhaps when they're moving between classrooms. We know Boris Johnson says that will only stay as long as is necessary. But it is a big challenge. And the challenge is that this is just advisory. It's not mandatory. So it puts the pressure on the teachers to enforce that, doesn't it?
From listening to students, and they are very keen to play their part in combating this virus. And as the Prime Minister said, and the Education Secretary, it'll be for as short a time as possible, and as soon as we can allow the children to take off their masks, then we will do. I think it's important that they feel safe in their classroom, as well as continue to have those face-to-face lessons. And it's so important that children are in school to make sure that they get that school environment and are able to learn in that very positive way.
Yes, absolutely. And getting children back into school, of course, the most important thing. But there is another issue, and that is an availability of staff. And we're seeing it in many industries after Christmas. There just are not enough staff to get back to work because they've been forced to isolate at home. How confident are you that you're going to have enough teachers in those classrooms and children will not be forced to return home and learn online again?
Well, we've made a plea for teachers who have retired or have moved elsewhere to come back into teaching to help out. I know some of my colleagues who were teachers before they became members of Parliament are going back into the classroom. And I think they're looking forward to it as well. We saw that happen for the NHS. We're now seeing it happen for teachers. And I think it's important everybody pulls together to make sure that the children can continue to get that face-to-face teaching that's so vital for them.
How many teachers have responded to your request for them to return if they've retired or are supply teachers?
Well, obviously, the people are coming back all the time, and the numbers will vary depending in different parts of the country. But I know everybody's playing their part. A few people have said to me in my constituency that they're going to go back into teaching for a short time. They had taken retirement, but now want to play their part. And the same members of Parliament are going back as well. I think it's probably mainly on a Friday when the House isn't sitting. But they're very keen to make sure that the children can get that face-to-face education that is so vital to them.
Yeah, I just wonder if you know how many have responded to that request to return to the classroom, because there are a lot of concerns about the safety for those teachers, particularly if they are older, maybe have retired. How many have returned?
Well, obviously, the schools are only just going back now, and it's a matter of thousands of people who've come forward to say that they will play their part. And it's important that they feel safe in that school environment as well. So the testing of the students and of the staff and the wearing of face coverings will make sure that teachers who are coming back do feel safe to be able to come back.
On that issue of safety, I want to read you a tweet from someone who's got in touch with us. She says she's an NHS GP, and she says, I'm a full-time GP. I've got 2 children of primary school age. She says one of them is clinically vulnerable. Unless the situation with schools changes, she says, to provide a safe place for education, I'm considering a career break at home to make sure that I can educate my children at home. What would you say to her? Because that not only takes the children out of school, it takes her out of frontline healthcare.
Well, obviously, I think every parent really cares for their children. It's only quite right that they do so, and I appreciate her concerns. But we now actually are opening vaccines up to children who are clinically vulnerable, and that's so important as well. For the younger age children who are clinically vulnerable to come forward to get their vaccine and help protect themselves and protect others as well. And we have opened up the vaccines a few weeks ago to the 12 to 15-year-olds and the 16 and 17-year-olds, and students students are playing their part in coming forward to get their vaccine, to protect themselves and protect the people that they live with and socialise with. And it's, there's lots of things, measures being put in place to make sure that the school environment is safe and students can continue with that face-to-face education.
Yes, and let's talk about vaccines. You are indeed the vaccines minister. Are you concerned by the big drop-off in the number of people coming forward for a booster or a third dose of the vaccine? After Christmas, there was a big push, we know, before the Christmas holidays, but that number has fallen significantly since the holidays.
Well, no, I'm not concerned because people came forward before Christmas, over Christmas, on Christmas Day itself, between Christmas and New Year, and they continue to come forward. 75% of those who are eligible for the boost have come forward already, as we saw people are so keen to play their part in getting their booster. But also what was really encouraging as well is those people who hadn't had their first dose yet were coming forward as well to get that, and people were coming forward for their second dose. And it was, once again, you see whole families come forward for the children to be vaccinated as well as the parents. So there's still plenty of time for people to get their boosters. Some wouldn't be able to be boosted because they had a recent infection of COVID. So they're all coming forward all the time. I mean, obviously people are very keen to get their booster before Christmas, but the slots are there now for people to come forward in their own time and as soon as they're eligible. And every day we're seeing them records being broken day in, day out, whether it's bank holidays or normal working days, which is fantastic.
But I would question those records being broken. I want to put some numbers to you, because if we look at before Christmas, you say people are still coming forward. 968,000 were vaccinated on the 21st of December. There was then just 400,000 on the 30th. And by Sunday, that had fallen to 100,000. That's way off that target of 1 million that were needed every day to hit that target.
I think you've got to remember that the Sunday was Sunday's always low. In fact, not every vaccination site, such as community pharmacies, are open on the Sunday. So numbers were always going to be low. They're low on every Sunday, and it was a bank holiday. I think to actually have 100,000 people coming forward on a Sunday is really, really encouraging.
But 40% of the population still doesn't have its booster, does it?
I think not everybody is eligible yet, and what we've seen as well is how many more people have come forward for their first jab, because they've been encouraged by seeing people come forward for their booster. So all the time we're making sure that people are protected. It's our best way to fight this virus. It prevents infection, it stops transmission, as well as making sure that people aren't hospitalised and people are not getting seriously ill, and that's all down to the vaccine. I think today is a really important day because it's actually the first anniversary since Brian Pinker had the first dose of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine outside of clinical trials. And it's a great boost for British research and innovation to know that from that first dose, over 50 million doses have been given across the UK, and now 2.5 billion doses have been given worldwide of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, which is really, really good news story.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to talk about this being a crunch week. We know schools going back, a lot of people going back to work. Of course, they've been mixing over the holidays. So we'll start to see perhaps some of those infections coming through in the numbers. At the same time, we know there's been a delay in getting lateral flow tests to pharmacies. We know it's difficult to book a PCR in some parts of the country. What reassurance do you have for people who need tests that they will get them when they need them?
Well, there's various ways that people can get a test. They can go online and order a test be delivered to directly to their home, and we've increased that capacity from 400,000 a day to 900,000 a day. That's PCR tests and lateral flow tests. In December, I think we got out 100 million lateral flow tests. January and February, that'd be 300 million. So there's lots of availability for the lateral flow tests. And I think it's really encouraging that people are doing the right thing and testing themselves before they mix with elderly relatives and before they're going to different places. And it's a really good news story. The fact that people want the lateral flow is a good news story rather than anything else.
Yes, and I want to talk about the pressure equally being put on hospitals right now. We've talked about workplaces. I mean, I'm just seeing figures this morning from the train operating companies saying that 1 in 10 of their workers is off. Similar picture in the health service too. We're only going to start to see these absences rise after that mixing over Christmas. So what is the government doing to make sure that essential services can continue?
I think it's important that people know that we've recently reduced the number of days of isolation from 10 days to 7 days, with 2 lateral flow tests taken that are negative. So that's one step. And I'm sure listeners will appreciate that the government's looking at the data all the time and putting in contingency measures. It'd be wrong of us if we didn't. It'd be wrong of us if we didn't plan for more staff absences. But we've also got to remember that as part of Plan B, then people are asked to work from home, and that will help to ease some of the pressures on like the rail operators and the NHS. And I think the fact that people were taking lateral flow tests before they mixed at Christmas will have helped to reduce that transmission that could have happened otherwise.
Vaccines Minister Maggie Throup, it's good to talk to you this morning. Thanks for being with us on Breakfast.
Thanks.